There we go. Okay, so this is going to be an interactive presentation. And we have a small, intimate group, so I hope all of you participate in the interactive portion. All you have to do is text all one word, state bar lap, to the number 22333. Make sure it is all one word. It doesn't have to be capitalized, or that doesn't matter, but just make sure it's all one word, because sometimes it will try to autocorrect you into 2 or 3 separate words. Once you've done that correctly, you'll get an auto response that says you've joined Lita Abella's session. Do not click on any links. Do not enter your name or any identifying information. All your answers will be provided anonymously. So while you're doing that, I'm going to give you a little bit of my background. So my career started about 43 years ago with the Los Angeles Police Department. I worked everything from patrol, vice, narcotics, internal affairs, and just about everything in between. I left after 20 years of service at the rank of lieutenant. And then the next 23 years, I've owned my own business as a licensed private investigator. I've also been in the fitness, health, and wellness industry for 23 years. The last 10 years, I've been with the State Bar of California. 5.5 of those years, I worked in the Office of Chief Trial Counsel, in which I assisted in the investigation and prosecution of attorneys for misconduct. And the last 5 years, I've been with the Lawyer Assistance Program. And in between all that, I obtained my JD at Western State in Orange County. So hopefully you are all now able to join the interactive portion and you receive that auto response. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is identifying and detecting substance use and mental health issues, discussing an attorney's duties regarding an impaired colleague, and how to have the, explaining how to discuss possible impairment issues with a colleague, developing a self-care plan and wellness strategies, and then letting you know about the resources that are available to you, such as the Lawyer Assistance Program. But first, I want to get to know a little bit about you. So how long have you been practicing? So if it was 0 to 5 years, you'll text the letter A, so on and so forth. And again, I hope all of you participate, because we're going to learn from each other by participating in these interactive polls here. Again, I said we have a small group, so the more people that participate, the more we're going to be able to have a more engaging conversation here. So it seems like the majority of you have been practicing about 11 to 20 years. A handful have been practicing over 30 years. Wow, that's a long time, as well as 20 to 30 years, and another handful 6 to 10 years. So what type of law do you practice? So here you can just type in, you know, if it's criminal, immigration, landlord tenant, whatever your area of law is. Dependency. Consumer, family law, reentry. I'm assuming that has something to do with immigration, maybe. Family services, disability, elder, legal rights, disabilities getting bigger, reentry is getting bigger. So a lot of you are in that area, nonprofit, housing. So we have different areas of practice here. Great. So do substance use and or mental health issues affect attorney wellness? I'm going to go through some of these studies, but collectively they demonstrate that substance use and mental health issues do affect attorney wellness. So let's take a look at some of these studies. This study was conducted by the California Lawyers Association and the DC Bar Association. Approximately 2,900 attorneys participated in this study. And what this study revealed was that depression, anxiety, and stress were higher in attorneys compared to the general population. Females and younger attorneys experienced worse mental health problems, and younger attorneys were 2 to 4 more times likely to report moderate to high stress. So you're probably wondering, well, who exactly are the younger attorneys? These are attorneys aged 30 and under. 24% of female attorneys versus 17% of male attorneys considered leaving the legal profession due to mental health problems, burnout, or stress. And the top reason was due to work over commitment. Increasing COVID drinking was 7 times higher in female attorneys. So the second part of this study revealed that 62% of lawyers reported feeling most valued for their personal or professional attributes, and this group had the best mental and physical health. Then the next group were 28% of lawyers reported feeling most valued for attributes such as productivity and responsiveness, but this group had poorer mental and physical health than that first group. And then the third group, the group with the poorest mental and physical health, was the 10% of lawyers who believed their employers did not value them or did not receive enough feedback. So another study was conducted and another group was formed with the California Lawyers Association and the California Women Lawyers. They wanted to know why women were leaving the area, the practice of law. And they came up with caretaking commitments, the levels of stress at work, emphasis on originating business, the billable hours, no longer wishing to practice law, work-life balance, and health concerns. So then the third part of the same study, still conducted by the California Lawyers Association and the DC Bar Association, this was the most recent one that just came out a few months ago, revealed key findings that lawyers were twice as likely as the general population to experience suicidal ideations. And the perceived stress was the #1 predictor of suicide, compared to lawyers with low stress. Those with high stress were 22 times more likely to experience suicidal thoughts, and lawyers with intermediate levels of stress were 5 times more likely. Lonely lawyers were 3 times more likely to have suicidal thoughts, and male lawyers were twice as likely to contemplate suicide. So the key takeaway for legal employers and other stakeholders was that employers may be able to mitigate some of the loneliness by making collaboration and regular social interactions in the work environment more of a priority. We all need that social interaction. When the pandemic hit in March of 2020, when the world shut down, we all kind of experienced that isolation, and it affected a lot of people because we were so used to, being around others, being able to go outside, being able to do whatever we wanted to do, and just to be locked down in our homes was very stressful for a lot of people. A lot of people were experiencing depression, stress, anxiety, etc. To combat the loneliness and isolation, employers and other stakeholders should avoid alcohol-based events as primary means of socialization and connection. We know that a lot of employers use alcohol as the way to get people together, just like how food is used. Well, food is one thing, and of course, everything needs to be in moderation, but we're trying to have more and more legal employers, events, conferences, seminars, etc., not to use alcohol as the key ingredient to get people together. And then employers should raise awareness of the downsides of being too committed to work and encourage lawyers to set appropriate boundaries in their lives. Because at the time when the pandemic started, we all were working from home. For a lot of people, they were working 24/7. They get up in the morning, hit the computer, start typing away, just work. Next thing you know is 12 hours later, they hadn't left that computer. We all have to realize that there's work life and there's your personal life. And even if you're working from home, you still have to have those boundaries and those limitations. So what are the different types of substance use and mental health issues? Well, let me ask you this first. What are the signs when someone's not well, something is not right? So most of us have gone back to work. Most of us are working a hybrid schedule now, whether it's 2 days a week in the office and 3 days a week at home or something similar to that. There's only a handful that I see that are working 100% at home or 100% in the office. So we're now able to socialize again, get to know our colleagues again, and the ones that you know pretty well, and it doesn't even have to be a colleague. It could be a colleague, family member, friend. What are the signs that you see when you know something is just not right? Yes, the person may be isolated. They used to be a social butterfly and now they don't want to engage anymore. Disengagement. Yes, you took the word right out of my mouth. Uncommunicative. Absences. Yes, more and more absences. Ignoring phone calls. Yes, these are exactly the signs that you see when something is not wrong, not right. Not answering emails, angry, negativity. Yeah, that whole personality changes, behavioral changes. Yes, you are hitting the nail on the head. So there's many types of substance use and mental health issues that can impair an attorney's ability to perform legal services competently. Some of them are substance use, abusing alcohol, abusing prescription drugs, using illegal drugs, mental health issues such as depression, anxiety, stress, burnout, vicarious trauma, compassion fatigue, post-traumatic stress disorder. And those last three, compassion fatigue, vicarious trauma, PTSD, are very prevalent in certain practices of law, such as criminal law, whether you're a prosecutor or criminal defense, family law, dealing with, a breakup of the family unit, child custody issues, children who may have been abandoned or abused, immigration law. Maybe you've been dealing with a client, you've been trying to get their paperwork together so that they can be in the country legally, and next thing you know, they've been deported, wrongfully maybe, and they've been deported back to a country where they may be killed because of their religious beliefs or so. Bankruptcy law, you're dealing with a family who may have just lost everything, their home, their retirement, because somebody swindled them. So there's so many different types of practices of law where you feel like it's almost you that are going through the situation that your client has gone through, because you become so close to your clients. You've got the weight, it feels like you have the weight of the world on your shoulders because they're depending on you to help them with their legal needs. And that could weigh heavily on an attorney. So let's take a look at some of the signs of substance use. How do we know if somebody has a substance use issue? Well, have you or a lawyer you care about ever failed to show up at the office or appear in court because you had a hangover, missed appointments with clients, showed up drunk at court or for a depo, been drinking or using drugs during the office hours, used client funds, regularly had more than one drink at lunch, had to have another attorney make your court appearance because you're hungover, missed deadlines, needed to drink because something good or bad has happened? There is a questionnaire. It's called the Cage Age Questionnaire that has been utilized since 1984 to find out if somebody may have a substance use problem. Used to be for alcohol. Now it's both for alcohol and or drugs. And there's 4 questions that they ask. And the 4 questions are: have you ever felt the need to cut down on your drinking or drug use? Have you ever been annoyed by criticisms of your drinking or drug use? Have you ever felt guilty about it? And have you ever had a morning eye-opener? Use alcohol or drugs first thing in the morning just to get started or relieve a withdrawal? If you answered yes to 2 of these questions, you may have a substance use issue, and it's recommended to reach out to a healthcare professional. So in addition to substance use issues, stress can also impact competency. So let's reflect on your stress level. How often do you feel It's supposed to say due to work. I changed that slide. I don't know why it's still not changed. Anyway, how often do you feel overwhelmed due to work? I'm glad to see the majority of you are saying occasionally. The ones that are weekly, we need to work on that. Oh, now it's switched. So I'm going to talk later about some wellness strategies that you can utilize, because it's not good to be feeling overwhelmed every day or weekly, because that leads to burnout and other health-related issues. So we're going to talk about this. So let's talk about the signs of stress first. There's two types of stress. There's healthy stress and unhealthy stress. With healthy stress, it helps us to increase our energy and motivation, our creativity and productivity, and it creates conditions for personal satisfaction. The key with healthy stress is that it's time limited versus unhealthy stress, which can cause fatigue, a loss of efficiency and productivity, and it results in functional breakdown. And the key with unhealthy stress is that it can become chronic. What can happen with chronic stress? It can lead to many health-related problems such as heart disease, hypertension, reduce your personal and professional performance, and it increases the dangers of one reaching out for alcohol and or drugs. The three most common types of mental health concerns among attorneys are depression, anxiety, and stress. So let's take a look at some of the stress indicators. Neck ache, backache, headaches. You can't sit at that computer all day long. You should be getting up, taking a break at least every hour, getting up, stretching, walking around, getting a drink of water. If you're there all day long, you're going to get those physical symptoms. Behavioral symptoms. You see people start to self-medicate. Maybe they start drinking more. Maybe they start using drugs, abusing prescription drugs or using illegal drugs. Maybe they increase their appetite. They start eating when they're stressed. For others, it could be the opposite. They don't eat. And you see them starting to lose weight. They become isolated. So these are a lot of the signs that you put up on the poll that I had asked a few slides ago. Personality changes, emotional tension and alertness, irritability, depression, impact on the professional performance, the procrastination, they start missing those deadlines, their work productivity gets lowered, they start making those excuses. So what can we do? How can we deal with stress? Well, as we discussed, many legal professionals are dealing with stress and many other healthcare issues. So you're not alone. Working for the right employer is a key factor in a work-life balance. Try to find processes that will make work more manageable. There are many types of technology to help manage your workload, such as different softwares, case management database systems that will help with your billable hours, help you make your appointments with clients, make sure that you meet those deadlines. There's other alternative arrangements as far as work, which I mentioned before. Most people right now are working that hybrid schedule, 2 or 3 days in the office, the other 2 or 3 days at home, which most attorneys really enjoy because it helps with that work-life balance. Having support staff to help you, whether it's a paralegal, a researcher, law clerks, investigators, there's a lot of work that hopefully you can delegate out, contract out to have people help you with so that you don't get overwhelmed with so much of a high workload. And then especially for the newly licensed attorneys, which we don't have any according to the question I asked earlier, most of you have at least been practicing at least 6 years. But if you know of any newly licensed attorney, make sure that they have mentors in the support network to, someone they can go to ask questions. And especially now it's been so difficult with working that hybrid schedule, because when you're not in the office all the time, a lot of these newly licensed attorneys are afraid to ask questions. They don't want to bother anybody. They're not able to stick their head in someone's office and just run something by them really quickly. So especially if you're one of the veteran attorneys who've been practicing for a long time, remember how these newly licensed attorneys are not as, you're not as accessible to them. So hopefully you can make yourself accessible to them. So the bottom line is having all this information thrown at you can be very overwhelming if you have any of these issues. So the bottom line is to pick a solution and start there. You have to do something. You have to take some kind of action. So let's talk about another demographic that I haven't talked about, and that's the senior and aging attorneys. So here are some fun facts. According to data from the US Census Bureau, millennials who were born between 81 and 96 made up the largest population in the US in 2021, followed by my generation, which are the baby boomers. We're second place. And then third place are Generation Z and X. So now let's look at the population of California licensed attorneys. But let me ask you this. What is the percentage of California attorneys that are over the age of 65? Let's see if you know the answer to this one. %, saying 38%? Oh, okay. I was gonna say, I've never seen somebody 100% on one answer. Interesting. Well, let's take a look. In California, we have over 265,000 licensed attorneys, active and inactive. The average age is 60. 28% of our attorneys are over the age of 65. That's over a quarter of our attorneys over the age of 65. And only 3% of our attorneys are under the age of 30. 40% of our attorneys are female. And this is as of October 2022. Now, remember in my first couple of slides, I was talking about how females are leaving the practice of law. I'm sure that number was higher as far as females, and it has gone down because females are leaving the practice of law, especially since the pandemic with the childcare issues. You know, a lot of people weren't able to find childcare while working at home. And so a lot of females left the practice of law to do other things where they can have more of that work-life balance, so they were able to take care of their children. Here's some more interesting fun facts. LA County has over 67,000 attorneys with, that's number one. Orange County coming in second, went 25,000 attorneys. And then third place, San Francisco with just under 21,000 attorneys. So as we get older, we may start to develop some cognitive issues. First, that usually develops is mild cognitive impairment, which then can increase up to dementia, and then a form of dementia is Alzheimer's. This video here is very brief. It's just going to go into a little bit of explanation about mild cognitive impairment.
Inability to remember a name or asking yourself, why did I enter this room, is often dismissed as normal aging, but it could be something more. It could be an early sign of Alzheimer's disease. They're known as baby boomers, people born post-World War II between 1946 and 1964. As many of them continue to age, they may find they're less mentally sharp. While that's often a normal sign of aging, it could also be something doctors call mild cognitive impairment, or MCI. 1 in 7 American adults has it.
Mild cognitive impairment really has gaps in memory or thinking that go beyond the normal aging process. This could be forgetting conversations or having a hard time finding your way around a familiar place.
The 2022 Alzheimer's Disease Facts and Figures report reveals troubling findings. 57% of Americans would wait until they had symptoms of memory problems for a while before seeking help.
I just wanted to ask you some questions.
The report also finds half of primary care physicians do not feel comfortable making a diagnosis when doing so is considered critical.
It really starts with figuring out, do you have MCI, and also what's the cause? Because there are a number of possible causes, and some of those are treatable. It could be depression or side effects of some medications, even sleep apnea.
But MCI can also be a result of early onset Alzheimer's or other dementias, which occur in roughly 10 to 15% of people with MCI.
One of the most important things is to really get an accurate diagnosis and to get a referral to a specialist for the additional testing needed for that diagnosis.
A diagnosis that David says is better sooner rather than later.
Early detection is the key to good quality of life and planning.
The Alzheimer's Association operates a 24/7 helpline in more than 200 languages to get the discussion started about memory loss concerns. Head to pahomepage.com for more about that and the annual Alzheimer's Facts and Figures report. Inability to remember.
So after mild cognitive impairment, if the issues get worse, it could go up to dementia. So dementia is triggered by brain function that can affect memory, thinking, language, judgment, and behavior. A person may not be able to do their normal things such as getting dressed or eating. They may be quick to anger or forget things they just learned. The American Academy of Neurology estimates that 10% of people over the age of 65 have some form of dementia, and up to 50% of people over the age of 85 experience dementia. And it's caused by changes in the brain that happen over time. So then a form of dementia is Alzheimer's. And as we look at the screen here, looking at the signs and symptoms, we see a lot of overlap: the memory loss, confusion, withdrawals, poor judgment, etc. So people may be asking, well, how do I know if I have mild cognitive impairment, dementia, or Alzheimer's? Well, this is why it's so important to get diagnosed by a medical professional. It could be something affecting you, such as medication that you're taking, and by changing the medications, that could relieve some of these symptoms. So it's very, very important, if anyone experiences any of these signs and symptoms, to get diagnosed. We have information on the State Bar website that can help people that are dealing with these types of issues. And to address cognitive impairment, an attorney should consider thinking about seeking medical treatment to get an early diagnosis, because the chances of a successful treatment can happen if they have that early diagnosis. Making plans for their practice, including making arrangements for their families and clients. Legal professionals can participate in decisions such as appointing a successor attorney or closing the law practice. And as you know, if any of you are solo or small firm practitioners, you're supposed to have a succession plan in place. And we have information on our website that will give you, under our senior attorney resources, that will give you information on how to create a succession plan, how to close a law practice if that's something that you need to deal with, and other resources that are available for attorneys dealing with these particular issues. Clarity leads to confidence, and confidence leads to competence. And so we all know Rule 1.1, but I think what a lot of people forget is part of being competent, it's also dealing with your mental and emotional abilities. The Committee on Professional Responsibility and Conduct has created this formal opinion on colleague impairment, and it's a great resource. It's actually one of your handouts that I believe is in the chat box for you. And this formal opinion addresses colleague impairment and provides guidance on the responsibilities of the impaired lawyer, because a mental impairment does not lessen a lawyer's obligations to provide competent and ethical representation. The responsibilities of other lawyers who know of the impaired lawyer's conduct have an obligation to take steps to protect the client and ensure that the impaired lawyer complies with the rules of professional conduct and the State Bar Act. If an ethical violation is ongoing, the subordinate lawyer has an obligation to take reasonable remedial measures to try to correct the violation and to protect the client from harm. And that's the bottom line, protecting the client. A lawyer possesses managerial authority within a law firm for the impaired lawyer practices is responsible for the other lawyers' violations of the rules of professional conduct and the State Bar Act. So this formal opinion provides detailed information on the duties of all the lawyers that know about this impaired lawyer, and it provides factual scenarios in a small firm and large firm setting. So here we're going to have a hypo for you. We're going to pretend that you are a 5-year associate. I know for a lot of you that's hard because you've been practicing for a long time. But you're in a law firm, you're a 5-year associate, and the only other attorney is the senior attorney, let's say, who's been practicing for 30 years. And so you've observed some things that you're concerned about. And what you observed is that this attorney with the 30 years has appeared confused, that person's missed some client meetings, that person's failed to communicate with the client, doesn't return phone calls, emails, texts. That person discusses facts and strategies with you that doesn't apply to the client's matter, and that person has failed to even communicate the settlement offer to the client. And so you're thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? You know, I need my job. I don't want to get fired, but I know I have a responsibility to do something here. So you decide to raise these ethical issues with the impaired lawyer, and that person has denied that he or she has any problems. And that person has actually admonished you and told you not to discuss anything with the client. So now you're really stressed and trying to figure out what to do. Well, let's look at some of the possible violations. Possible violations: duty of competence and diligence, because the person had appeared confused, discussed their own facts and strategies. Failure to communicate with the client, because he or she didn't return those phone calls. Failed to communicate that settlement offer to the client. And as we know, if an attorney is not able to competently provide legal services to a client, they have a duty to terminate representation. And in this scenario, we only have 2 attorneys working in the firm, the 5-year associate and the 30-year senior attorney, who's supposed to be managing that 5-year associate. Well, if that person is not competent, him or herself, to do that, that's another violation of misconduct. So what are the recommendations? Well, the subordinate lawyer must take timely, reasonable remedial measures. And that subordinate lawyer will need to communicate with the client that significant developments have occurred and tell them about important information that's been happening on their matter, so that the client can make his or her own informed decision about what to do. The subordinate lawyer will need to tell the client that the impaired lawyer is unable to continue as counsel, that the impaired lawyer failed to communicate the settlement offer, and make recommendations on how the client's matter should be handled or could be handled, such as maybe the subordinate lawyer can associate in another attorney that can assist him or her with that client's matter. Maybe the subordinate lawyer can find another attorney to take over the matter because that person doesn't have enough experience or expertise. Or maybe the subordinate lawyer does have enough experience and expertise to handle the client's matter on their own. So there's different things that can happen here, but obviously something has to be done. We can't let the situation just continue with the impaired lawyer handling that client's matter. The subordinate lawyer can also contact our office, the Lawyer Assistance Program, and or the ethics hotline to have a confidential discussion about this situation. We're not going to give any legal advice, but we can point that person in the right direction, make some suggestions and recommendations. So again, this formal opinion is a great resource to have if you're dealing with these issues, because a mental impairment that impedes a lawyer's ability to competently and ethically provide legal services triggers ethical obligations, not just for the impaired lawyer, but also for certain lawyers who know of the conduct. So I highly recommend taking a look at this formal opinion. Now, a lot of times people know that there's something going on with a colleague and they want to talk to them, but they don't know specifically what to say or how to start that conversation. So another one of the articles listed in your resource list, which is part of your handout, is this having the talk article. So the first thing you want to do, and this is not a supervisory subordinate discussion, this is more colleague to colleague. Find out if your employer has an established policy and be guided by that. Analyze your own biases and stereotypes first before you have this conversation with your colleague. Discuss specific events that you actually observed. Don't go on like rumors. Have resources available to provide to the colleague, such as the LAP brochure or flyer that's part of your handouts, the list of resources that's also part of your handouts. Listen to the colleague. Maybe you might find out what is going on. Maybe they're dealing with a divorce. Maybe there was a death in the family. You don't know. You're not there to diagnose the person, but you're there to listen, be supportive, and offer resources. And be prepared for defensiveness, because sometimes people who are dealing with these issues are in denial and don't feel that they have any issues. So some of the conversation starters you can utilize, as you see pop up on the screen here, as ways to get that conversation going. What could happen if attorneys don't get help? Well, let's say somebody who is dealing with a divorce, they start drinking and drinking, then they get arrested for a DUI. Now they have to worry about a criminal matter. Then they got to worry about a disciplinary matter with the state bar. You know, so many different things could happen. The ultimate is death, and this is why I'm here. We want to make sure attorneys know that there's resources out there, there's support out there, and to reach out if they need any help. I'm going to show you this video. It's 5.5 minutes. It talks about suicide. If this is a trigger for you, feel free to leave for the next 5.5 minutes.
The first time I tried to kill myself, I was 16 years old.
My name is Terry Tottenham. As I was nearing my 60th birthday, I faced a personal and professional crisis that drove me into a deep depression and caused me to consider and look at my long history of alcohol abuse.
My name is Tracy Franklin Squires. I'm an assistant district attorney, and I'd like to tell the story of my family's loss of my brother Donald to suicide.
I'm Terry Bentley Hill. I'm a criminal defense attorney from Dallas, Texas, and I am a survivor of suicide. I am not a survivor just once, I'm a survivor twice. My first husband took his life 25 years ago, and then 9 years later, my precious youngest daughter, who was 14 years old, also took her life.
My name is Ann Ritchie. I have bipolar disorder, and I'm a suicide attempt survivor.
My name is Kyrie Cameron, and my life has been significantly affected by suicide and depression.
My name is Sally Conway. I'm the executive director of the Grace Longcar Foundation. Brian was a huge part of my life growing up from the time I was little until I was an adult. He was an extremely involved stepfather. He even coached my elementary school soccer team. 4 years ago, this November, we lost Brian tragically a week after we lost my youngest sister, Grace, to suicide. We lost Brian to an overdose.
I'm Erica Gregg. I've been practicing law since 2001, and I absolutely loved my work. It was exciting, it was challenging, it was adventurous, but along with the challenges and adventure came depression and anxiety. And 10 years ago, on Mother's Day, I attempted to take my own life.
I'm Chris Ritter, and I'm the director of the Texas Lawyers Assistance Program. And I can't tell you how much it means to me today to share with you some life-saving information about depression and suicide. Depression is the biggest problem that we face as attorneys. And if we don't know how to take care of it, how to recognize it, it can lead to death by suicide. Anxiety is something that attorneys face every day. Anxiety over time, if we don't know how to take care of ourselves, can lead to depression. And if we don't know what to do or how to recognize depression, we can get into a serious problem.
I have a friend who attempted suicide when he was 17 years old. And he jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge, and he survived to tell the story. And so I said, Kevin, what were you thinking? And he said, oftentimes when a person is suicidal, they'll make a pact with themselves. If this happens today, I won't die today. Might die tomorrow, but I won't die today. And he told me his entire day, the day he decided to die, he went through the entire day of interacting with people. He was sobbing, hugging his father for the last time, he thought. Getting on a bus crowded with people, and he was crying, and nobody asked him, are you okay? Getting to the bridge, and a lady walking up to him, and instead of asking, are you okay? She hands him a camera and says, take my picture. And he said, yeah, sure, I'll take your picture. And he jumped. But the thing he told me is that if one person had asked him if he was okay, he would not have jumped. And again, I also have to say that the minute he jumped, he regretted it. And he said the saddest thing in the 4 seconds it took for him to hit the water is that he was going to die, and his family did not know that he wanted to live. He regretted it the minute he jumped. So the minute he told me that, I thought, we have to stop minding our own business. We have to ask the question, are you okay? Even if it's a total stranger, I walk through that courthouse and it's not a happy place. If there's somebody on the bench crying, I will stop, because I remember what he said. If one person had asked me if I was okay, he wouldn't have taken his life. He wouldn't have jumped.
So I know suicide is not a topic anybody likes to discuss or wants to discuss, but it's a topic that we have to discuss because it's happening in the legal community, in the legal industry. It's happening in our communities, in our cities, in our state, and across the country. It's happening to law students, attorneys, judges. What are your thoughts after watching this video? Intriguing, heartbreaking, shocking, sad. And I highly recommend, it's actually a little over 30-minute video. I had it condensed down to 5.5 minutes. I highly recommend, if you have the time, to actually watch the full video. It's a reality check, sad but not surprising. Sad to hear that this profession leads to all of this. Moving. So vigilance needed. What I really hope is that this is a conversation starter, so that when you go back to your workplace, that you have conversations about mental health, about depression, suicide, stress, well-being, etc. We have to have these conversations because it's happening, and we need to make sure that we know of the resources that are out there in case you know of somebody that's dealing with these types of issues. Let them know there's resources out there available to them, and to be supportive to one another. So hopefully we utilize this as a conversation starter. So now let's talk about the resources that are available to you. First, I want to ask you, do you have a well-being policy in your workplace? Wow, that's great to see. It looks like, oh, no, it's changing. I was going to say, usually the majority is the no. And I was going to say, it's great to see the majority is the yes, but now we have 50-50. For those of you that don't have one, the ABA has a well-being toolkit. So it's a great resource. They have exemplars in there on how to make a well-being policy, things you can consider putting in a well-being policy, such as, do you have one that deals with substance use and mental health issues in your workplace? Does it explain an attorney's ethical obligations relating to their own or their coworkers' impairment? Is there a policy that would realistically support time off for treatment? Are there regular communications about the importance of well-being? And do you have health plans that include coverage for these types of treatment? So I highly recommend for those of you that don't have one to utilize this toolkit, let your employer know about it. Some of the recommendations for legal employers is having remote work schedules, consider alternatives to the traditional billable hours. If the required billable hours are 1900, that should be the hours, not the baseline. When it comes to establishing well-being, prioritizing established well-being committees, adopting policies that promote well-being. Professional development is an area where legal employers can have a strong impact on employees' experience, showing that an employer is invested in their employees' professional success. And then attorneys who feel connected to their colleagues, employer, and the legal community are apt to be less stressed. Recommendations for legal professionals, know where you fall in the spectrum of well-being and identify the support that you'll need in your employment to thrive. Evaluate legal employers if you happen to be looking for a job. Make sure you find one that aligns with your particular needs. There's platforms such as LinkedIn or Indeed that can help you find current or former employees to obtain feedback on an employer. The Surgeon General had a framework for workplace mental health and well-being, and it looked at how workers and their how that impacts workers and their families, the organizations, productivity, the bottom line for business, the economy. We all know since the pandemic, mental health issues have increased tremendously. Nearly 80% of workers report that workplace stress affects their relationship with friends, family, and coworkers, and only 38% of those who knew about their organization's mental health services would feel comfortable using them. Again, that's because of the stigma. The more we talk about this, the more we can reduce the stigma, the more people will reach out for help. 5 essentials for workplace mental health and well-being. Looking at this chart here, I'm not going to go into all of it because I'm running out of time here, but it just talks about the highlights: protection from harm, connection and community, work-life harmony, mattering at work, opportunity for growth, and worker voice and equity. So now let me talk about wellness strategies and self-care plan. But first, let me ask you this. What do you do to prevent burnout, stress, or anxiety? If it's exercise, what type of exercise do you do? If you like to relax, what do you do to relax? So be specific. Dancing. I love to dance. I haven't danced in so long. Run, good cardio, rock climbing. So I'm glad to see a lot of you like to be outside, getting that vitamin D from the sun, doing some cardio type of exercise, such as walking. Yoga is great for your strength, stretching, I should say, flexibility, I think meditation in combination with exercise is awesome. We're going to talk about all of these: weightlifting, sports, strength training is very important, spending time with family. Yes, got to have time to spend with family and friends, hiking, walk, yoga, singing. Great. So I'm glad to see that there's ways different ways that everybody likes to enjoy themselves. So 4 steps to mental well-being: sleep well, exercise, eat well, and meditate and practice mindfulness. So sleep is extremely important. We need at least 7 hours. It helps to boost our immune system, reduce stress, improves our mood. A lot of positives for sleep. Exercise. I'm glad to see a lot of you are out there exercising. We need at least 150 minutes of moderate activity a week, which equates to about 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. That gives you 2 days to allow your muscles to rest and recover. Having a balanced diet and nutritious, healthy food, also very important. We need all of these tools in our wellness toolkit. Practicing mindfulness and meditation is another one of the tools in our toolkit. There's apps we can put on our phone that can just guide us through these breathing techniques. It could be something so simple as, breathing in for 4 counts, holding the breath for 4 counts, exhaling for 6 counts. This is something where, let's say you've just got off the phone with opposing counsel and you feel your blood pressure is rising, you're having these heart palpitations, your head is, ready to explode, and you just need to calm down. You find a little corner somewhere where you can just do these breathing techniques, and it will literally help you physically, emotionally. Such a great way to, one of the wellness toolkits to help you deal with those issues. So the Lawyer Assistance Program, we help law students, state bar applicants, and attorneys, and that's active, inactive, and disbarred attorneys who have issues with substance use or mental health. And everything in our program is confidential unless it's waived by the participant, or it's a mandated reporting by a healthcare professional. That would be if you said something that was a danger to yourself, danger to others, child abuse issues, and elder abuse issues, and the information cannot be disclosed as part of a civil proceeding, a disciplinary proceeding, or public records request. You're entitled to 2 free individual counseling sessions with a career counselor if you're having difficulty finding work. Maybe you want to go into a different area of practice of law. You're also entitled to 2 free one-on-one sessions with a therapist who specializes in stress, relationship challenges, burnout, and grief. And you're entitled to a free orientation and assessment with one of our licensed clinicians for our longer-term programs. That person would come up with a treatment recovery plan for you, find weekly group support sessions you can attend, and those support sessions are only with legal professionals, law students, bar applicants, and attorneys. Everything now has been moved online, which people like. Our clinicians are there every step of the way to help you with your paperwork, doing drug testing if that's applicable. They want to make sure our participants successfully complete the program. Here's the contact information for the LAP office. Again, you can have that confidential phone call with our office if you have questions about anything, or let's say maybe somebody who may be dealing with some issues and you really don't want to get involved, but you feel that this person needs help. You can call our office and you can even be anonymous and say, I think John Doe or Jane Doe has some issues. Somebody needs to reach out to that person, and we'll reach out. All we can do is let them know about resources that are available to them. Obviously, we can't force them into anything, but at least we can reach out and try to let them know that there's help available. Ethics Hotline, another resource like I mentioned earlier. Here's their information here. Also, more information on the State Bar website. Here's a list of resources, which is one of your handouts. One that I want to point out is the Lawyer Depression Project, because it's not only for attorneys, but for non-attorneys. And as we all know, they also suffer from a lot of these issues that attorneys do. It's free, and they have locations throughout the United States. The State Bar would like your public comment on this new proposed rule 8.3. Some call it the snitch rule, but it addresses a lawyer's duty to report the misconduct of another. They're accepting public comment until May 4th. So if you would like to give your opinion, pro or con, whatever your side is on this, reach out to the State Bar website, go to the public comment webpage, and there's a form. All you have to do is fill out the information on the form. It should be fairly easy. This is the last time you're going to take your phone out. Here, you're going though to your internet browser. Type in pollev.com/state-bar-lab. Again, go to your internet browser, Chrome, Safari, whatever it is that you use. Type in pollev.com/state-bar-lab. Do not enter your name or any identifying information. Your answers will not appear on the screen. The only thing that will appear on the screen is a graph showing that you've answered the 3 questions, which should only take about a minute to answer. And even if you haven't participated in the polls, you could still participate in this survey. 3 very quick questions to answer. And again, the address is at the top of the screen, pollev.com/state-bar-lab. While you are finishing up on the survey, my contact information is on the screen. Sometimes people have personal questions that they want to ask, but not in a public setting. So feel free to jot down either my email address or the general email address, lap@calbar.ca.gov, and I can forward it to the appropriate mental health provider. I am not a mental health provider. If you have any general questions, I'm more than happy to answer any general questions at this time. And I will ask Megan if there were any questions that she saw in the chat or Q&A.
I didn't see any questions in the chat or Q&A, Lita. I put the information for the links to the materials for this training and where everything will be for the training in the chat, but otherwise I don't see any questions
Okay.
at this time. So
Okay, great. Well, I just want to thank everybody for their time, and I know your time is valuable. I don't want to keep you any longer than needed. So thank you for attending this, and I hope you were able to get some valuable information. Thank you and have a great afternoon.
Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. This webinar was hosted by the Legal Aid Association of California, also known as LAC. We are the membership organization for California's civil legal aid nonprofits. Our job is to advocate in the legislature, in the courts, and with the State Bar of California on behalf of the community of nonprofits that serve low-income Californians. In addition to our online and in-person trainings, LAC provides coordination and advocacy for increased funding to support organizations like yours. Thank you.